coming today. As you all know, Director Baker always does a preseason visit with you all to cover some of the things that you'd like to go in and talk about as we go through the start of the new season. After his opening remarks, we'll take questions. I'll call on you. Everybody I think I've checked with that wanted to ask questions. So, Director Baker, I'll turn it over to you.
Good morning, everybody. Excited for a new season. Last year, we experienced a lot of success, one of our best Directors' Cup finishes in several years. Even more excited about this season. Already have some wins on the board. Men and women's soccer both won last night. Then we have football fan day this evening, volleyball scrimmage tonight, so lots going on, and we're very, very excited that the energy's back on campus. We open up football season, of course, a week from tomorrow, and there is a lot of enthusiasm and excitement for football. Our season ticket numbers as of this morning, got those from Ben Murray and Aaron Gibson, 33,208. We expect that number will get somewhere between 33,500 and 34,000. To put that into perspective, we are bottomed out kind of in that 22 year, just under 23,000 season tickets. Last year we were at a little over 28,000. So massive increase. That shows a lot of enthusiasm with our fans. I think the most exciting part, you have some non-renewals, and so we have over 9,500 new season ticket holders. So very impressive number, and it'll be our job to keep those people on board and continue to grow that number. We are making lots of headway in implementing the settlement, the House case settlement and rev share. Already have had a substantial number of checks cut to student athletes, and we're seeing NIL opportunities, the real NIL opportunities from business to our student athletes. They've been submitted through the clearinghouse, and I think all of those have been approved that have been submitted. So don't know those exact numbers because they don't send me those in real time. I just know we've had several deals go through, and that's great that our student athletes are getting those. We need to continue to grow those opportunities for them. Our coaches, staff, and student athletes are doing a terrific job. I'm really proud of them. And as we really look at the future, and you guys may have questions about this later, but I think the next thing, we're at the full rev share number, but we've got to add scholarships. That's crucial for our Olympic sports to be able to compete at the level that they are, that we add those scholarships. And so that's something that we're working on even now, trying to plan for that for next year. Golden Blue Enterprise is up and running. You all saw we hired Don Robinson, native West Virginian bank president in the market, had done very well, and really has a bright commercial mind. And so he's the kind of person that we needed, somebody that's different, has a different skill set, different knowledge, different experiences than the staff that we already had. And we had a retreat last week, and just having him in the room with the rest of our senior staff as we plan out the next year was really helpful. And he has a lot of thoughts and ideas and is already bringing some new commercial opportunities to us. President Benson's on board now, and as you all probably have seen, is all over the place. I think he'll be at Fan Day today. He was at soccer last night. But we're really blessed to have him, have enjoyed getting to know him, getting to work with him. Certainly is going to provide great leadership for campus, but I think he'll be really good for athletics. And then lastly, we announced our Hall of Fame class this morning, so congratulations to those inductees. Those are always, there's good days and bad days on any job, but this job, one of the best days is when you get to make those calls, and that's a very deserving class and really some tremendous individuals. So with that, I'll just open for questions, but I will say thank you to our fans. I mean, not only is our season ticket numbers really high, but we're seeing our MAC donations climb both in the number of donors and in the amount of gifts, and just generally support all the way around is high. So I'll close there with opening remarks and take questions.
Great. So Wren, football scheduling intrigues me now because of the SEC announcement, and you've got 3 games in the future against SEC opponents, including Alabama home and home. So what's going to happen with your schedule?
Yeah, I think we'll know more in the next few days, but That announcement did not surprise me, and we've had multiple conversations over the spring and summer with a lot of different opponents planning for the future, and we'll certainly circle up and see where we're at. We don't want any instability in our non-conference schedule, so I think it would be really important for us to try to solidify that sooner rather than later. I've made it known that I think when you're playing 9 power conference games inside your conference, that really one power conference opportunity is the right number out in that non-conference, and so maybe that gives us an opportunity to clean that up. We'll have to see. It's that announcement yesterday didn't surprise me, but it triggers some other conversations for sure.
Earlier this summer and just now you mentioned that you're looking at adding scholarships next year, but you were quoted in an article a day or two ago that said you were adding $2.5 million worth of scholarships this year. Those seem to be butting heads. Which one's correct?
Yeah, so I believe when I did a media availability with you all, I don't know when the last one was, but we talked a little bit about the nuance of this. So there's really 3 buckets inside the settlement cap. There's a direct rev share of dollars. There's Austin Awards if you continue to do those. Those are the academic incentives. And then there's scholarships. And so if I was quoted as saying we had done new scholarships this academic year, that would have been either an inaccurate statement on my part or a misquote on somebody else's part. I'm not sure that I saw that. But we did continue to do Austin, which is a form of aid. And so you could divide that up by probably scholarships and come up with an equivalency on it. But I think as we look at next year, we're really focused on adding those scholarships.
The scholarships you're looking at added for next year, all Olympic sports or any for the revenue producers?
I think we're still early in determining that. Certainly those scholarships will have to be Title IX, gender equity based in the way that you appropriate them. And so I think where we'll probably start is in visiting with each of our head coaches over the next 3 weeks to see what their needs are. And I think I mentioned this before, you're trying to assemble a big puzzle, but everybody wants a custom piece. And so I do want to know what they would have their custom piece be between those 3 buckets of money. May not be able to satisfy all of that and still satisfy our other regulatory environments, but I think we'll at least try to get a sense for what are the needs in each of these for each of our sports teams, and can we fit those pieces together?
Spencer from Dominion Post.
Right here. What do you think of college football playoff expansion and the Big 12 wanting to potentially move to like 24 or 28 teams?
Yeah, still kind of processing and getting details on that latest expansion. I just believe that there shouldn't be an inequitable number of AQs based on historical performance. I think that is an unfair way to do it. I think you earn it on the field in real time. Places have up years, down years. I mean, we see it all the time. One year this conference is best in basketball, or next year that conference is. It kind of depends on, what's the strength of the QBs in the league, those kind of things. And so, I'm always for additional opportunities, provided that it does not diminish the student-athlete experience. I think in football, when you talk about a sport that's particularly physical and grueling and long in terms of the season, you have to be really careful and intentional about how you do those. And so I'm open to any discussion that makes sense, that provides opportunities and doesn't significantly impact the health and safety of student-athletes. But I also believe you earn it on the field. So the 5+11 model I've said that I'm supportive of. If we go to a larger field with more AQs, I still think those AQs for the Power Conference League should be equitable. And if some leagues are better, they're going to get more of the at-larges than others.
Quinn, so you have adopted a new ticket program for the students. It's first come, first served. Can you talk a little bit about that and what that might bring for the students to put more students in seats?
Well, it's been very frustrating over my, I came in November, December of 22. So the last couple of years to have, even for big games, Backyard Brawl 2 years ago, Penn State last year, to have more requests and actually have to advance to the lottery system to award tickets. And then game kicks off and you have a whole bunch of empty seats in that lower. And that's been a challenge. We've tried other ways to address it. We just have not been able to have a real solution. And so when we sat down and talked about it this year, I know sometimes people at home think we don't discuss these things. We discuss everything every year. But usually, it's like we probably spent more time talking about the blue lot than any other topic since I've been here, because we know like it's mass chaos over there sometimes. But anything you do changes it, and it changes it in a way that also creates issues and problems. And so same thing with this student seating. I like that we rewarded our upperclassmen and people who had been here the longest, but they weren't showing up in that lower level like they needed to. And so what we would do is, if we had, I think it's 12,000, I'm looking at Erin, she's here, 12,000 students that we will allow every game, a certain percentage of those will get lower based, I think, on mainly seniority. So we bumped what percentage we give lower, trying to fill that lower up, and it just hasn't worked. You still look up there at kickoff in a game that's completely sold out, tickets going for 4 and 5 times face value, and you have a couple hundred, if not more, empty seats over there. So we just feel like this is a better way to do it. Like any decision you make, there's some people that think it's good and some people that are disappointed. But I think it's the most fair way to do it, and the best way to create the kind of atmosphere and environment that we'd like to create.
So to kind of go off of Gray's question about the SEC changing their schedule format, people immediately have their heads point to the Backyard Brawl. And Pitt's head coach Pat Narduzzi has even mentioned about wanting that game to potentially continue on prior to having to wait until 2029. But what I don't think everyone looks into is the Alabama series was supposed to start here in Morgantown. If the Brawl would replace, that would be back-to-back years where Pitt would be coming here. I don't know if they would want to do that. Would you be willing and interested to do any kind of unique compromise of ticket gates or revenue of home games, that they would maybe give you some of their revenue if West Virginia would lose a home game? Would you sacrifice a home game to get that one Power 4 and continue that rivalry? Because it's not as simple as throwing, as you know, as throwing the Brawl on there.
So I'll just say, a few days before those comments were made, I actually had reached out to the athletic director at Pitt to extend the series. So they knew fully well we were trying to extend the series, and that didn't come up until they decided to make that comment. Here's what I would say. We're looking at a lot of things when we look at scheduling. We're trying to build a schedule that does allow us to sell tickets and create interest. We're trying to build a schedule that affords our team the best opportunity to have the kind of season they need to have to advance to the CFP. That's the end goal. We want to get to the CFP. But we're also trying to build a schedule that brings people to West Virginia and to Morgantown. I'm a huge believer that when you look at the economics of our state and the economy of our state, the opportunities to grow businesses in our state, tourism is one of, if not the biggest. And so I think any opportunity we have to have home games that bring people that may not come to West Virginia, if not for that, into our state, fill up our hotel rooms, let them experience the beauty of fall here, the opportunities, whether it's golfing, hiking, river rafting, fishing, side-by-siding, as I like to go on my free time. Whatever it is that you're doing, I think it is important for us, and I believe it's a responsibility of ours to try to promote tourism for the state. And so you're weighing all those factors. I'll just say that we have spent hours and hours and hours analyzing scheduling opportunities. I think we have a pretty executable plan no matter what happens in the next few days, and we'll be able to execute it pretty quickly.
Yeah, I'm going to ask you about scheduling, financing, days in court, scholarships, all that stuff.
You usually ask the hard questions, Bob.
Well, those are not hard questions. Yours, mine's on that. No, here's the deal. You open the football season a week from tomorrow. You have a new coach or an old coach, depending upon how you
Who eats ketchup on his steak? Did you read that?
That was rough to hear.
Yeah.
How will you judge? How will you judge Rich Rodriguez? Will it be like, I mean, how much rope does he have? How important is it he win this year? That kind
Yeah.
of stuff.
I don't know that for me you could go back in my history. I don't think I've ever put an expectation out there in terms of wins and losses, especially for a first-year head coach. I think what you're looking for the coach to do is come in and establish culture, come in and build the foundation, and then when you get to the end of year one, you feel like you got momentum going into year two. But I will say that it's been fun to work with Coach Rodriguez. It's been fun to watch him. Those of you who maybe covered him the first time around, he's very calculated in just about everything that he does when he's in with his team. And so I'm confident in where we're going. I wish I could sit here and say I know where we're at right now, but with 75 new players, I don't know that anybody does, right? I think that's probably a record number of new players. I don't know, I mean, if there's ever been somebody with more new ones. And so I think the job on our entire coaching staff to very quickly analyze each of their skill sets, acclimate them to the culture, fit those pieces together in a way that allows you to have success. That's been an awfully big job. I think they've worked really, really hard at it. The cars in this parking lot are here at daylight and they're here at dark, and I drive by here all the time. I don't know that I have an expectation of anything other than we're establishing culture, that the young men in our program are representing us the way that we want to be represented, that they play hard, that they care about WVU, and at the end of the year we feel like we have something to build on and continue to create momentum.
You realize that, you obviously realize that the shadow of 17 years ago is there. If it gets off to a good start, that's no problem.
Something happened 17 years ago. I didn't even know. Yeah.
It's been in all the places, but nobody reads them anymore. No, I mean, it could, if it goes good, be great. If it goes troublesome, you would have something you really wouldn't have to worry about normally.
Yeah.
How do you handle that?
I think for me, just like in the hiring process, like I was aware of the history. My job is to focus on the here and now and the future. And I think the evaluation, regardless of it being coach's second tenure here or how or why the first tenure ended and how people feel about it, the evaluation for me is still the same. Do we feel like that we're laying a foundation, that the coach is building a culture, and that we have something to build on for the future? And I'm pretty good about shutting the outside because I always know that that's temporary. I've done this over the years, and all week leading up to a game, people can be ready to fire your coach, and you go out and you beat somebody at home against a top 10 opponent, and everybody wants you to extend your coach. And I get those emails, like people within the same season will be like, extend the coach and let the coach go. So I think in leadership, you just have to shut all that out and keep your evaluation process the same. And that's what I've always been pretty good at being able to do that.
President Benson recently spoke with the Daily Athenaeum, said that you have a aggressive plans to upgrade the athletic facilities, specifically the football stadium, the Coliseum. What are these plans?
Yeah. We have had a fairly thorough assessment of all of our facilities. And Slam Architects helped us with that. It's a great firm. I'd actually worked with them before I was here, but they've worked with the university on several projects over the years. And they've done a very thorough assessment of everything from parking to egress and ingress to they've set and interviewed every head coach we have to see what those facility needs are. So it's fairly comprehensive. I would say where our focus is right now is in the Coliseum. Is there a way to create some premium that's not super costly? We're looking at that, exploring that. And then when it comes to the stadium, that's a more costly endeavor that I've talked about previously. We have to create more premium, club, loge, ledge, every kind of seating opportunity there is. We have, by percentage of our capacity, the lowest percentage of premium in the Big 12 and one of the lowest in the country. And so where that becomes a problem is those seats sell for higher. They require a higher donation. And so really it starts to become a self-fulfilling prophecy where you're always a have-not because you don't have those levers to leverage people to give more money and donate more money. So anyway, I think my hope is, I think last time we were together, I said we were kind of in that silent phase of having discussions or entering it. We're now into it. We've got several meetings coming up over the next couple of months, and hopefully, maybe end of the year, shortly after the new year, we'll unveil a plan for the stadium. But I think we need a fairly significant investment in the infrastructure and of our stadium if we want to continue to thrive and compete.
And Matt here with Joe Ricotta.
Wren, you've had a number of sports, non-revenue sports, Olympic sports that have done quite well in recent years. How do you kind of balance the need to keep those well-funded while also making sure that the top-tier sports also have what they need in the new environments?
It's tough because I try to explain this to our coaches sometimes. Your pie is the size that it is. And so anytime somebody wants to come in and get a little bigger slice of pie, you're taking that pie from somebody else's slice. And so, now we've been blessed in that we've had some donors who stepped up and help us do some individual projects and have because they understand that we have limited, we have a finite amount of resources. And the reality is, and I try to remind our staff of this, like it's embedded in coaches to always be driving for more performance out of each kid, more performance out of their assistants, more resources from the athletic department, better facilities. And so even if today I said, you know what, we can fulfill all of your wishes can come true. You just put it on a list and tell me what you want. And I've made it all happen. A month from now, they would all have a new list. Like guarantee you, they would all have a new list. And so, you're balancing that. We made a decision this year to invest a lot into the rev share as opposed to scholarships, for instance, and that really helps our revenue sports. But when I talk about why it's important, because you can't have a successful athletic program if you don't have football and men's basketball performing at a level where they're bringing in the kind of resources that feed the rest of the programs. And we left that Austin allocation, as I've referenced, to really as a gap to help all of our Olympic sports. But as we look at the next year, we're still trying to invest as much as we can in our revenue sports. But those scholarship opportunities are vital for our Olympic sports, and I've made that known to our leadership on campus. I'm well aware of it because it is important in this state. People love the success of our rifle program. People have really rallied around our two soccer programs and what they've been able to do. We've had some massive crowds, and our marketing team follows the impressions and all that stuff. I mean, it's important to people in this state. People have been very excited about what baseball has been able to do. And so, those are just examples. We've got a lot of other sports doing a lot of great things too. But but it is something that we're not waving the white flag and saying, hey, we're going to give up trying to compete in these Olympic sports. We still want to be excellent there. But we also know that we have to be excellent and competitive in those two revenue sports. So it's a challenge. It's something we talk about every day. And it's something that when we have conversations about it, sometimes there's new information. We change the way we're doing things. Sometimes you all of a sudden out of the blue have to compete to keep a coach, and so that requires you to put a little more money invested somewhere that you weren't planning to, and you either have to go find new money or reallocate money. So it's all a puzzle that you're constantly having to try to fit together.
Second row, Cody.
Yeah, Wren, you just mentioned the importance of football and men's basketball. Is there a level of unease in an athletic department when your two big revenue sports are essentially starting over? I mean, roster-wise, almost entirely starting over?
I don't think so, because enthusiasm is high, and both of them's ticket sales are trending very well, so revenues are good. I think in some ways hope springs eternal. I think the most consternation comes when they're both struggling, because you're seeing your revenues decline, and if you have those revenue sports struggling, whatever way you're going about fixing them, it usually isn't cheap. So you have a double edged sword. You know, on one side of it, revenues are declining. On the other side, most of the time, the fix requires some expense. So I would say I'm really excited about where we're at in those two sports, and really hopeful, and I think the fans are as well, just based on what we're seeing in terms of our trends in ticket sales in both.
Kind of going off what Hertz is asking, separate from the ticket sales, and I understand you haven't played a game yet, but if you went from December 16th, whenever you hired Rich, to today, I'm assuming you're pretty happy with everything. Maybe I'm wrong, correct me. But what metrics do you use as far as your observations and your access to things that let you feel as good as it seems like you do?
I believe, it's a variety of things, right? It's MAC donations, it's ticket sales, it's caravan attendees, it's social media impressions, it's the people that I talk to, when I'm out and about and seeing people. One of the package delivery companies delivered something to my house the other day. I wasn't home, but he recognized the name and asked my wife if that was my house. Probably knew it was our house, but he was so excited and said, "Hey, I haven't donated to the MAC or bought season tickets ever, and I got my tickets this year." And so I think it's both the big data that we can collect and we see and we're constantly assessing, but it's also just a feel as you're out and about and you talk to people. And so, I think it's all of those things that you're kind of assessing.
And then the court case. Do you still think things? Do you know anything yet? Because there's one player, there's still a question.
Yeah.
Technically, and there's been no subsequent answer or action by the NCAA as far as I know. A lot of people thought there might be.
Yeah.
So there's no time on that, I guess, to expire. But do you even know how far the finish line is? Never mind if you're there.
Yeah. So I'm not a lawyer, and so I don't try to be one. Sometimes in leadership, some people try to play hero ball. I stick to my lane. I think that order is like 60-something pages. So, you lose me on about page 2. I have ADD, I think. So, so we have our general counsel working with our compliance officer. We've engaged the Big 12. I believe they have or will engage the NCAA to make sure we know what the judge's ruling is at a high level, to make sure we're interpreting it the right way and that we're not putting the institution at any risk. And I'll probably just leave the rest of it unsaid, because I think we're still unpacking and assessing and trying to figure out exactly where we are with all of those. And I'll just make one other thing clear. Whether it was this case or the case a couple years ago, we haven't sued anybody in terms of WVU. I mean, we're a part of the NCAA. We help make those rules. So it's like sometimes we are like, you guys are suing. Like, we have not sued anybody, but we do support young people or any citizen's rights to pursue legal recourses if they feel like that they've been denied an opportunity or had an issue. Unless they're suing me. If they're suing me, I don't support it. But I support their rights to do it. And once we have clarity on exactly what it all means, then we'll move forward in a way that doesn't put the institution at risk. But our coaches are important. Our student athletes are certainly important. We care deeply about them. But nothing is more important than the institution's integrity, than the institution's reputation. It's bigger than all of us, and it's very important to this state. And so we'll wait to. We're making sure we're starting the process of getting those guys that are eligible to get out there as quickly as possible. There's obviously an acclimation period and all that stuff, but then also making sure that we fully understand all there is to understand.
If I can slide one more in, all four have practiced recently, correct?
I'm not sure about that.
All right.
Okay, so third row to your right there, great hair.
Yeah. Regarding the football scheduling, this is the first time since you've been here that they won't have 11 power conference opponents. What you said earlier about the end goal being the CFP, does that change anything in terms of expectations? And is it fair to say that maybe some of the past schedules were not aligned for that goal?
I think if you go back and look at scheduling historically, and we do, and when you run the different analytics and historicals, it's very, very difficult to build a program playing 11 power conference games. So, I mean, I've said that before. I'm not second guessing or questioning anything that was done. We moved into a league where we didn't have a lot of natural geographic rivals, and I think there was a desire to maintain some of those, right? And so I think that's why some scheduling moves were made. But I tend to be driven more by data, and the data just shows that there's a clear path to have success and get postseason opportunities, especially in this new era. And that new era is, 10 power conference games. And so that's the goal, and that's probably driving our philosophy more than others. And I get stopped all the time with opinions about who we should play and when we should play them. And some people are like, we're West Virginia, we should play in our backyard, their backyard, anybody's backyard, anybody, anytime. I'm like, that's great. But I followed by the data, not bravado. That's probably the best way I can answer that.
Wren, you talked about obviously bringing games to Morgantown and the importance there, but you have some games coming up, obviously in Charlotte, neutral site games. Is that something you want to try to continue in the future, and is there other sites you could potentially look at, or is it really kind of Charlotte?
Yeah, I think picking and choosing neutral site opportunities when it gives us a real chance to extend our brand or engage fan bases that we know that we have a lot of fans and alums and West Virginia natives that move outside the state, but are in, Charlotte, for instance. Have a lot of people in Atlanta, so we see those hot maps, and if we have a chance to engage fans and it financially makes sense and it doesn't put us in a position where we're cheating, if you have 7 or 8 home games, you can be more willing to move one than if you only had 6. So I think we're looking at all of those in real time. We've had been approached a couple times about playing a game internationally. It just hasn't made sense. We haven't had the right opportunity yet, but if it was a game that we thought really helped our brand, really allowed us to build some momentum, that's something that we might consider. So I think you're looking at all of those things, and knowing that there isn't a perfect schedule, right? Like, you're not going to build one that everybody's like, oh, this is the perfect schedule. You're trying to build a schedule that that checks the most boxes you can check, understanding that the biggest box is probably that it allows your team to be successful.
You talked about, I guess, the economic component of the schedule. I think there was a economic impact study done before your time that I think it was like 400 million was into the local economy, which 8 years ago, which makes it much more now. Do you get a sense from talking to people the importance of having a strong football, basketball team and how that relates to the local economy?
Not just local, but state. Yeah, it's regional and state economy. Yeah, I do. I think, like, I know people that come in for some of our games and stay at Nemacolin, you know, and that's not in state, but it's in region. I think our games have an economic impact that stretches well beyond Morgantown or Mon County. Yeah, I do. I think people know. I think our board knows. Our president, our leadership knows. But I think at the state, they understand. I read an article recently that in terms of growth of tourism as part of your economy, I think we're like 4th or 5th in the entire country. And the ones that were ahead of us is like all big touristy areas. And so I am a believer that is a massive opportunity for this state. And I know that I'm not the first person, like, listen, this is not like curing cancer. I think most people know, like, that's a significant opportunity for us. So I haven't uncovered something that no one else knows. I think but it's becoming a huge focal point, I think, for the state leadership to understand it. So anything we can do that helps that. And certainly WVU athletics has a massive impact on the economy in Morgantown, in this region, in our state.
We got through our first round of questions. We still have some time remaining, so just raise your hand and I'll call on you. Back here to Greg.
So, Ren, two-parter on rev share. So, first part, your budget's always tight here. How do you find $20.5 million? Reader's Digest version, because I know you could take hours for that. And then, are you ready and willing to give us the breakdown of who's getting what out of the rev share?
So probably I'll take the second part first. Not going into the breakdown yet, and that's for the same reason that really virtually no one else is. I think maybe one or two people have. It's a competitive thing that we just prefer to not do. But I have talked through the high level formula, and that is whatever percentage that you're contributing to those revenues that are identified in the settlement that we are sharing, whatever percentage of that you contributed is you get a corresponding percentage out. All right. And so on the first part of that question, yes, it was a massive hurdle to get to $20.5 million, and it really took everybody. We've been able to grow revenues in the athletic department by a substantial amount this year. Still have a couple of new revenue streams that we haven't announced yet that will come out. We do have an additional investment that's come from campus. Most of that was in the fee that was instituted, and I know that fee was debated some. What we get from student fee is still much less than a lot of regional rivals. South Carolina's fee is much higher. Clemson's fee is much higher. Pitt's fee is much higher. Virginia Tech's fee is much higher. That's one area. And then we were really fortunate that the WVU Foundation stepped up and helped us too. And so it really was a lot of people and some donors as well that stepped forward. They know how important it is that we were at that full amount.
Yeah, as you probably know, we disagree on non-conference scheduling. I think that we should play two-power teams. But do you really think that beating LIU 66-0 is better for this school than to play a close game against, even if it's a loss to Virginia Tech, or a close game before a sold-out crowd on national television against Penn State. I mean, those are things that have to be considered too when you talk about the reputation of the school program.
Yeah, I try not to think as much as I try to analyze the data, and I have. But I also, Bob, I don't think you can just take one off. Is this game better than this game? Because you're playing 12 plus potentially a 13th in a conference championship. And so it's what gives you the best chance to build momentum throughout that season. So, if you play two big physical Power 4 teams and you come out of that bruised and battered and injured and maybe you lost your team from just a mental standpoint, how does that set you up for the rest of your season? And so I think this is where the coach in me, you're trying to build schedules that provide challenges, but also give you opportunities for success so that you build confidence, because confidence and momentum in sports are so incredibly powerful, but so very, very fragile. And so I think in football, it's really, really challenging. Basketball scheduling right now. Football, you're building these schedules 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years in advance sometimes. And so you're looking into a crystal ball, not knowing exactly what things look like for the most part that far in advance. But I am confident in this type of schedule that we need to build. But it's not because it's what I think. It's what I've read in the data as I've assessed other programs like ours who are trying to build a program that can advance in the postseason.
How about if we rule that everybody had to play just one non-power?
Yeah, if everybody else was doing it, that's right. That's exactly right. And we may get to that point eventually. Now that'd be probably hard for the group of 5 opponents, because a lot of them rely on getting that payday, but 2, the exposure that playing the power conference opponents gets them. But if everybody else was doing it, we would sign up to do it as well. If we only played 8 conference games, I would love to be in a series eternally with Pitt and Virginia Tech. That would be great. Because I think in Southern West Virginia, there's a lot of people there that probably see Virginia Tech as just as much, if not more, of a rival as Pitt. I mean, they don't have a lot of Pittsburgh graduates that they work with and live amongst and go to church with. So, but unfortunately, that's we've got to build a schedule based on what everybody else is doing in the national landscape that gives us a chance to be successful.
Can you speak on both basketball teams? Men's are going to go play Charleston, but the women's team are going to go play the top 10 in Duke at the Rivalry. Can you speak on what went into that, to taking them to different parts of the state?
Yeah, and so the men have Wake Forest and at Charleston, and then I think for us, opportunities to get in Southern West Virginia is important. Some of our most passionate and loyal fans, I know you all travel some too, like when I go to Southern West Virginia, I'm not so sure, because they get less opportunities to engage with it. Like when you go to the caravan stops, the ones down there have a little more energy, a little more passion sometimes. I think because they're further out and they don't get as many opportunities to see the coaches and interact with them, and and so I think that was intentional on our part in both of those situations. One, to be able to play a power conference opponent on a neutral site, because you get rewarded in the system for doing that. So, and if you lose those games, it doesn't hurt you as bad as if you lost it on your home floor. So there's a little assessment of again, building schedules in basketball is very different, and the coaches are much more engaged in basketball scheduling. But it's each of those games you get certain points for winning and losing home way. It's a different system in neutral. So, it's an intentional effort by us to try to put some things in Southern West Virginia, knowing that it might be easier for some of our fans down there to get tickets and to travel to the game than it would be to come all the way to Morgantown.
Back row, Kevin Kinder.
In evaluating coaches of Olympic sports, do you also take into account the amount of support they have, whether monetary, facilities, fans, whatever? Does that go into maybe even a decision on, hey, they need another year versus it's time to make a change?
I think so, for sure. Yeah, I think not just Olympic sports, all sports you're trying to evaluate it. Like, do they have the tools in the toolbox to be successful? What can and should we do different? And then and then you're trying to factor that into the evaluation that you're doing. So I definitely think that's one of the criteria. Like, I'll tell you, we have a lot of coaches that do wonderful job. Sean Clary may be, in terms of pound for pound, he may be the highest performer in our entire campus, right? Like, what he's able to do with what we're able to provide is really remarkable. So I think that's part of the conversation.
Mike, here in front.
So to kind of walk through the little door that you opened there with the conversation with Bob, now that the SEC has adjusted to 9 league games, that puts the Power Four at Big 10, Big 12, SEC all doing the same number of league games, but the ACC is still kind of off on their own island, and they have the Notre Dame issue as well. In your perfect world, would you like the Power Four conferences, if possible, to uniform the same number of league games? So Pitt is playing 9, you're playing 9, even though you're in different conferences? Or does that not? Where are you on that topic now? Because that's the next step, is for them to maybe get to 9, and it seems like we can't go back to 8 now that 3 out of 4 is 9.
I think it makes the most sense, although it's probably not something I spend a lot of time thinking about. I mean, the ACC, I'm in the Big 12, so I only have so much bandwidth to really think through even what we're doing from a scheduling perspective. And as of July 1, I'm the chair of our league, so that requires even more bandwidth. But
in terms of non-conference champions
yeah.
getting selected.
Yeah, no, it could. And so the cleanest way, I think, especially if we're going to try and get agreement on a playoff format, is for everybody to play the same number of conference games. And probably a somewhat comparable number of power conference games. Now, what the SEC would say, and they have data to back this up, is your conference games aren't necessarily the same week to week as our conference games. So there's no way to just, unless you were doing some kind of nationally scheduling model, to just have equity across the board. But I think the SEC moving to 9 probably, I would guess, puts a little bit of onus on the ACC to go back and rethink and contemplate what they're doing. And if everybody's playing the same number of conference games, that probably helps the conversation on playoff format. But I'm speculating somewhat there.
So that's not a concern that could impact you negatively, that they have a different number of league games? Because there are people that view Big 12 ACC kind of in the same bucket right now.
Yeah, I don't think so, because I think there's still a human calculation in that CFP room, and without seeing the members of the selection committee in front of me, going to assume that there's going to be more representatives from the 3 conferences playing 9 than the 1 conference playing 8. So I would bet you that it's going to come up in that CFP room how many power conference games you played and how many conference games you played. I figure that will be a talking point that will be discussed. And so a lot of hypotheticals in there, but I don't know that I would see it sitting here today as a disadvantage.
Our final question today goes to Mike Kazab.
Sheesh. Okay, this will be fun.
Are you going to ask me one that's going to end my day poorly, Mike?
Anyways, that's not my goal, but it may be the outcome here. Outside the media, fans, whatever, I think a lot of people who observe this kind of think that the whole operation, like, the concern is if it's sustainable and for how long. And even inside out now, you've had people who've said and even taken actions that indicate the same thing. it just feels like there could be a point where it's everybody in or everybody out, and the train goes on with who wants to go in, and then who doesn't stays behind. And all those TV contracts kind of end at about similar time too, and that's not too far from now. Yeah, this will ruin your day, I guess. Do you foresee like that sort of an intersection if it doesn't, for lack of a better phrase, get its act together, if it doesn't divide like it seems like some of these conditions have?
If I knew exactly how things would play out, I said this, we had our senior staff leadership retreat last week. I got the same question from them, Mike, so they ruined my day as well. They were like, they basically want to know, like, how do I see this all playing out? And I said, hey, if I knew that, no disrespect to you guys, I wouldn't be in this room. I would be consulting with 4 or 5 schools for about $500,000 each, and telling them this is what you got to do to be prepared for how this shakes out. I am very concerned about the overall ecosystem of college sports and how sustainable it is, especially for broad-based support. I don't think I'm unique in that concern. I think most every AD in the country, most every president in the country, and a lot of coaches are concerned. When you have some of the wealthiest schools in the country who have $200+ million budgets, throwing $30 and $40 million deficits, I'll tell you how that happens. They shuffled as much revenue as they could into the player acquisition and retention, kind of betting on the short com, and some were probably rewarded for that and some weren't. And so they're throwing a massive deficit, but those $30 and $40 million deficits are not sustainable. And so eventually you got to correct that, and you got to try to balance your budget. So is that going to come from campus support? Are you going to bring that in from Olympic sports? There's only so much revenue to be had and to be made. No matter where your campus is located, no matter how big your stadium is, there's only a certain amount of revenue to be had. And so I'm not going to sit here and say that I don't think about that a lot. And I believe we all do. I believe it's why at some point federally people have to make a decision. How important is supporting all of these Olympic sports and broad-based opportunities on these campuses? Because this totally unregulated, unrestricted environment is not sustainable. And so, I worry about it. I feel like in the immediate future, we are very poised to compete because we've done some things to try to stay ahead of the trends, and I'm excited about some of our commercial growth and revenue opportunities. Campus has been very supportive in any way that they can, and so you've seen us be successful. But long term, I do think, it's a worry, it's a concern, and at some point we've got to find a way to establish and manage an economy that has some type of regulatory environment. The people who say just let the market decide, there's very few businesses that don't have some kind of regulatory environment. And so there has to be some kind of system in place that you can manage to and build 3, 4, 5 year budgets and understand where you're headed.
Okay, everyone. Wren, you've been very generous with your time. I know the media appreciates it. Thank you very much.
Appreciate you guys. Have a great weekend. And next week, we'll be back here. Thank you.